Hey guys, in this video I'm going to do bulk edits on geometries in Giraffe. So if I turn this 3D layer off, Giraffe geometries, which could be anything, can be edited in bulk. So I could select these, make them commercial, and change the levels on all of them at once. So when you've got selected items, you can change all of their properties in a bulk way. Okay, so that is pretty straightforward. Now, often people want to say, hey, can I import some geometry and then do that in the same way? So say I want to import some parcels or some buildings and then edit their height, etc. Absolutely, you can. So the way you do it is you add a data layer, you create your own by GeoJSON or shapefile, import it, and then if there's fewer than 100 elements, you'll be able to create those as editable Giraffe geometries, and those will come in. So that's the first way. But it's actually better than that. Like Giraffe has native data finding tools. So if I open the lens control on this 3D building, and I'm going to add a geometry filter, so everything south of Lumsden, north of Amherst, and between Bellevue, and Echo Street, we're going to, by default, exclude. I'm going to change that to include. So we now have these buildings. I can, in this settings over here, import these to project because there's fewer than 100. They're just going to come in as Giraffe geometries, and then look, they're editable. Now, there's a few subtleties here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off the 3D building so it's not confusing. So you can see there they are. Now, there's a height property that actually comes from the base data. I'm going to delete that. Those things will now fall away. I'm actually going to delete all of the properties that come from the OpenStreetMap data. I'm going to do something else. You see the sneaky type, right? Giraffe has a type, and our type needs to be type building section. But OpenStreetMap has a type called building, and if there's a type called building, it's going to mess up Giraffe in the following ways. I'm going to actually just call these context, usage context. You can see which changes the color and changes the number of levels, but nothing's happening because this sneaky type property is overriding the building section property, which means Giraffe doesn't know that it has to add levels. So if I bulk delete that by literally opening the raw, deleting that type, and I'm hitting save, all of a sudden those buildings get levels. And we could add an offset here, in or out, whatever you want. So I haven't saved this project, so I just get repeated warnings. Now there's something else as well, so that's bulk edit in the first. Let's add a cadastre layer now, and I'm going to use a joiner app to pull stuff in. Okay, so I'm going to try pulling some of these cadastral parcels. Let's do these ones over here. So I go here, my public apps, I add joiner. Now we need to select an input layer, so I'm going to add a drawing layer called GeoBoundary. Create, and I'm going to draw on GeoBoundary a rectangle, and that is going to be my boundary, right, on GeoBoundary. Then the prime layer is my parcels layer, Cadastre New South Wales. As you can see, quick as a flash, this join layer with a T, because it's temporary, has appeared in the left. And you can see there it is, right? So this is a temporary layer. And now I'm going to use that same trick that I did to bring in the buildings from the 3D buildings layer. I'm going to open the lens controls. I'm going to add a filter, a geometry filter. I'm going to change that to include, and I'm going to draw my boundary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0.5. And now I'm going to import. Now, they've been created on an invisible layer, probably default, or no, GeoBoundary, since GeoBoundary was active. Now, I can get out of here because I don't need this anymore. I'm going to delete that boundary because I just used that. And now look, I've imported from the Cadastre New South Wales layer, I've imported these geometries, and you can see there's all the properties that have come from the cadastre. So if I right click on the cadastral parcel, see there's the properties, object ID, cat ID, create. And if I click on this, there's object ID, cat ID, create date. Right? And so now what I can do is I can say, well, imagine we were just to offset these. So I've got an envelope usage. I could do anything. I could just add a height property and an offset property. Let's say 2 meter offset, and I could add a color property. And this could be enough for me. Or I could apply usages. So that is two ways. Well, so there's two things here. This lesson is bulk edit and also using joiner and some of our lens features to bulk create data. Now, of course, bulk create it can be a little tricky because often the data from these servers is extremely complex. You can see that cadastral parcel or this one over here may not be, there may be sort of degenerate geometries, there may be tiny little slithers of zero width. So you have to be quite careful on the create geometry. We're working on making that more robust, but obviously we're dealing with basically every public data set in the world, and there's a lot of ways for things to fail. But hopefully this is useful.